Hello, it's Matthew from Matthew North Music. Now today's video is just a quick video, and if you like these sort of things, please think about liking and subscribing to my channel and also clicking the bell icon on the video so you're notified of the next video that's coming up. Today we're talking about this. Now this is the power supply for my Dell laptop. Now I've had Dell laptops for quite a few years, and the one I currently have I've had for about 5-6 years, and it works fine. It's a good little machine. The problem is that the power supply is broken, and where these break traditionally is on the power connector at the end of the cable. They just wear out, which I'll show you in a minute. And these things are actually a sealed unit, so you can't really take them apart. But for about £5, there is a way that we can fix this. Well, this is my Dell laptop that I've had for the last 5 or 6 years, and it's worked pretty reasonably okay. But we just have this one problem, and that problem is that it's not charging at the moment. However, if I wiggle the power connector, then it starts charging and it lights up. Now, the reason that I've got this problem is because at some point in its life, the power connector got knocked. And in fact, if I take it out and show it to you, you can see the end's a little bit bent and there's a break somewhere in the end of the connector. If we look at the power brick, you can see that it's a sealed unit. And there have been people that have taken these apart to try and replace the cable, but generally it's quite unsuccessful. So what I've done is I've just gone out and bought another cable like this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit it to the power supply, but without actually cutting anything to do with the casing. To do this repair then, we don't need an awful lot of tools. Some side cutters, a soldering iron, some solder, a digital voltmeter and some heat shrink. Now the first thing I'm going to do is actually unplug the power supply so it's completely disconnected from the mains. And then I'm going to do something quite drastic. I'm going to cut the cable, but I'm not going to cut the cable right at the end. I'm going to cut it about so far back. And there's a reason for this. And that is, I'm going to strip the ends. Because if we look at the cable here, we've got a blue, a black and a white. And on the replacement cable, we've got a black, white and a red. And what I need to do, I need to check which wire is going to which. So what we do is, we'll snip off the ends. Because these plugs actually have 3 surfaces. We've got the outer sleeve here, which I think is ground, the inner sleeve, which is the positive, and then we've got the pin inside, which is a control wire. So we'll stick our digital voltmeter into continuity test mode. So when these are touched together, I'm just using the croc clips for now. And I'm going to clip to the black first and see where the black goes. That's the outside, so black is ground. Let's get our new cable and we'll see where the black goes on that. Black is ground, so black to black. We'll now click onto the white one, and I'll click onto the white wire of the new one, and I think that is going to the control pin. I'm going to actually just change the wire here because I just want to double check that is definitely going to that central pin there in the middle. Yeah, so white is the control pin of the new cable. We'll try the white then on the cable that we've taken out, and that should be, let's see what that is. Yeah, so the white is the inside, so that's the negative, so the blue on here should be the control pin in the middle. And it is. So blue's the control pin. And where's red going on this? Is red going to the control pin? No, it's not. It's good to write these things down, even though it's all a little bit scruffy. But basically, the whites are reversed on the old cable to the new cable. The next thing then is I'm going to take the cable from the power supply and I'm going to strip the ends. And with these ends stripped, I'm then going to get some of our heat shrink. Now I'm going to get some heat shrink that's a little bit thicker than the actual cable here. And I'm actually going to cut 2 strips off and thread them on the cable. There's 1, there's 2. And I'll make the second one slightly longer. So the second one slides in first, because that's going to be the last one to be heat shrunk. And the reason I'm using 2 pieces of heat shrink is that I just want that extra little bit of mechanical strength. Now our new cable here has got this grommet thing glued on, because that's basically designed for someone who's going to rip the old power supply apart and rewire it. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use this as it is. So I'm actually going to snip this off, and then we'll snip the wires back on this one as well, like we did on the power supply. Now because we put the main pieces of heat shrink on the other end, we don't need to put any on here. So there's our 3 wires. And if we get our other cable here, we can start wiring this up. Now this is going to kind of go like this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the 2 black wires. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip them a little bit shorter. I'm then going to, but I don't want them too short because I want to put some heat shrink over them. So we're going to snip those back like that, and then we're going to stick some heat shrink over one end of it. I don't have too much left, but I've got a bit of the shorter stuff, so I don't need too much on here, just a little length. Just enough that this will then slide down here, like that. And then we get the other end of our cable, and then we sort of twist them together. So we've twisted our wires together, and then we just stick some solder on them. So there's our solder, there's our soldering iron. I'll just stick solder on like so. Just snip the end off because there's a little bit of excess solder there. Then I will sort of bring that back like that, and then stick our heat shrink over the top, and then we heat shrink that down. And now you can use various things to do heat shrink, and I'm just going to use the end of the soldering iron because that's hot enough. But quite often I use a gun, like a paint stripping gun, especially one that you can change the temperature on, and that kind of does the same job. Anyhow, that's our wire done, and I'm going to do the same with the others. Now obviously we've got them different now, so we want the white on the old cable, which is this end. So there's our white on this end, and that is going to go to the red on the new cable. So there's our white, there's our red. So we'll snip these 2 at roughly the same place. Taking off that bit of heat shrink, and then we'll pop that over the wire. Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'm going to twist this one first on its own. Then we pop that bit of wire, that bit of heat shrink in. Then we join these 2 together. And then we give them a twist. That's about the right size. Move that heat shrink out of the way because we don't want to melt the heat shrink before we've soldered the wire. Okay, let's get that bit of wire soldered in. That'll do. I'm just going to snip some of the excess off again. Then we're going to bend that down, pop the heat shrink over, and then we'll flatten that with some heat. Yeah, it's going on nicely there. Do the same from the other side. Yep, that'll do. That's nice and insulated. And then we just got the last two, which is the blue of the old onto the white of the new. So again, snip each end. I'm going to make the join a little bit further up, actually, I think, just because then it gives us a bit more space. So do that and that. We'll snip the ends. Get some more heat shrink. Yeah, where did I drop that heat shrink? There it is. There it is. Bit of heat shrink down on that white cable there. Okay, let's join these two together. Didn't make these quite as long, actually. I should have done, but it'll still work. Oh. Half a plaster's just ended up on there. I was chopping off some plaster in the spare bedroom and I cut myself on the metal bits on the end. DIY is not my forte. Anyway, right, that's our last one. And then that will go in like that. And that's the last one to heat shrink. Probably isn't the safest way of doing this. I'm trying to show the camera when I have a good chance of burning my fingers as I'm doing this. Right, okay. So there we have our 3 wires heat shrunk together. We're then going to get our big piece of heat shrink over the top that should cover all of this quite well. You should probably let this cool down a bit, actually, just in case any of it starts melting, but no, that's all okay. And so now I'm just going to heat shrink this by rubbing my soldering iron all along one end and then all along here and just gradually turn it over. I should really use the hot air gun for this, or even one of those, you know, reworking station type things that you use for surface mount. That'll do the job because that gets nice and hot, but I'm just doing this because it's easy. Okay, and that's melted down, and then we're going to use our second piece of heat shrink now, just to give it that little bit of extra mechanical strength. And the middle actually needs a bit more heat on it because that's not quite gone down as much as it needs to get the other piece on. Just put some more heat on there. Right, that should be okay now. Now let's shove that over the top. That's better. Here we go. Right, that's all done. Let's heat shrink that, and then we'll plug it in, and hopefully we shall have many more years of no problems battery charging. And let's take our new connector and plug it in and see what happens. There we go, and it's charging, and if I wiggle the cable, there's no problem. No problem at all, so that job is fixed. Anyway, that's a nice successful little repair, and I'm all about recycling and reusing. And you know, these power supplies, even though you can buy one for maybe 20, 30 pounds, why do you need to if there's nothing wrong with it? Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please think about liking and subscribing to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one.